Beach FM, locals talking to locals.
And we talked to Peter Edwards, who's been out to see a lovely movie at the Shoreline Film Theatre up there in Waikanae, Mahara Place, a lovely air-conditioned place, and he's been to see The Post. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Nigel.
Did you enjoy The Post?
Certainly did.
What's it all about?
Well, it's any film that's directed by Steven Spielberg and starring a couple of A-listers like Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep certainly promises to be a good one.
Yes.
And I've got to say, this truly was a good one.
Right.
The Post. The Post actually is the Washington Post, the newspaper.
Oh, is that what it's about?
That's what it's about.
And
you could all argue that it's a drama or a political thriller.
Yeah.
And it's all concerned with the release of the Pentagon Papers. Now, the Pentagon Papers were a series of papers which were written by the US Department of Defense, which effectively said to successive US administrations that the war in Vietnam was unwinnable. Not really good news as far as the governments are concerned. And they suppressed all this information. And finally, someone deep inside the FBI released it. But he leaked it.
Right.
Meryl Streep plays the head of a newspaper, the Washington Post. Tom Hanks plays her editor. And they certainly have some disagreements about whether or not they should actually release the information. And eventually they decide to do so, and it caused all sorts of upheaval. And eventually the Post had to go to the US Supreme Court in order to gain their agreement, if you like, to release the information. Which, if you consider that the Vietnam War ended up with over 200,000 US casualties, 58,000 of them were dead, something of a political storm.
I can imagine it.
Yeah.
And of course, they were right.
Yes, indeed they were.
Yeah.
Indeed they were.
So they got through the court okay?
Yes, they did. The US Supreme Court ruled in their favour, six votes to 3. They did release them in the US, and all over the States, various other newspapers also agreed and started to release information about the Pentagon Papers.
I can imagine Meryl Streep being the head charang in that Post.
Yeah,
paper,
in a sense.
got demeanour.
It's a very Meryl Streep-like performance, because you tend to think of her as a very strong, determined type woman. In effect, she is hardly that right at the outset. She's something of a ditherer. But eventually, Hanks's part, he persuades her that,
so she played the part well.
She did, yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not a great fan of Tom Hanks, but I think this is one of his better performances.
Yes, when you mentioned Meryl Streep, and I said I can imagine her in that position, I was imagining her to be the strong woman that she is.
Not initially, not at all. But eventually she does actually come across as a very strong woman deep down, but it takes her a while to get there.
Right, okay. And we won't tell the outcome of the film, because that would be ruining it, but you might just like to touch on it.
No, the key to it all, I think, is that as a result, Richard Nixon, who was president at the time, refused to allow the Washington Post anywhere near the White House.
Right, yep.
And a year later, a security guard happened to find some burglars inside the Watergate building, and we all know what happened there.
Yes.
And as a result of all that, it caused the downfall of the Nixon administration.
Right.
So yes, it's, if you like, a prequel to that other good film, All the President's Men.
This is it.
And that's what happened, yeah.
Great. Long movie or shortish movie?
Do you know, I don't know.
No, but you enjoyed the whole thing?
Oh, I did, yes, very much so. I mean, I knew the outcome before I went in, but it didn't detract from the enjoyment.
So it's on for some time, is it?
It's still running, and I have to say that when I've been in and out of the cinema, I've seen that all the houses have been full, so it's clearly a very popular one.
Yes.
And if you want to see it, better get in sooner rather than later.
And you can book online.
You can.
Going to the Shoreline, just go like Shoreline Films, and up it pops, and you can book online, and they'll come back and tell you what's if there are seats available or not. But also don't forget the vouchers, Peter.
Indeed.
A good value.
They are indeed.
And they don't have to be for special occasions. They can be just a voucher for yourself. Get a 10-card ticket. Yeah. All right, Peter. Well, thank you very much for that. It sounds interesting. The Post was a Steven Spielberg film with, of course, Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks. And boy, you might come out with a view of it that you had it all along for a start off. So simple as that. So there we are. That's at Shoreline Film up there in Waikanae, and Peter just dropped a little note off about it too. Yes, so I must try and get along to see some of these films. I haven't had a chance to see them, but I'm going to get there, that's for sure. And after the one Gail gave us a review of, Gail Hall, last week, I must try and get along to see that as well. So thanks for that, Peter. We'll see you in a month's time, thereabouts.
Indeed.
There we are, Shoreline Film Review from Peter Edwards today on The Post with, of course, the wonderful Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks.
106.3 Beach FM.